You believe hard work alone will make you successful? Then let me unchain you. The man who works without law is a laborer. The man who thinks with purpose is a king. And though both may sweat, only one builds. The other toils without end, spinning the wheel of busyness with no thought to destination. If that sounds like you, busy but not built, then I say again, prepare to be unchained. The world teaches you to work harder, when what you need is to think sharper. You have been conditioned to confuse movement with progress, exhaustion with achievement, suffering with sanctity. But I tell you plainly, motion without aim is drift. Effort without thought is slavery. Endless toil without law is not noble. It is unconscious bondage. I have studied the wealthiest men who have ever lived, not by hearsay but by instruction. I learned from Carnegie, who made more men millionaires than any other man in history. I studied Ford, Edison, Rockefeller, Schwab, and Lincoln, and I lived their patterns in my own flesh. And what I saw was this: the world does not reward the hardest worker. It rewards the clearest thinker. The top 1% do not think like the masses. Their thoughts are organized. Their decisions are rooted in law. Their results are born not of frenzy, but of command. These men do not wait to be told. They declare. They do not wonder. They decide. They do not merely act. They act with plan, with rhythm, with mind that governs action. And this is why I say hard work will not make you successful. It may keep you alive. It may help you survive. But if you wish to ascend, to build a fortune, to create legacy, you must master how to think. Not occasionally, not when you're in crisis, but as a discipline, as a daily law. Carnegie told me, I can get men to do anything if I give them a plan. That sentence shattered the illusion of hustle for me forever, because I saw then it was not effort he relied on. It was direction. He could point average men toward definite tasks, and they would produce riches, not because of superior strength, but because of superior alignment. You have worked hard, but where has it led you? You rise tired. You return home distracted. You are praised for effort, but starved of results. That is not your failure. That is a failure of a system that never taught you how to think with purpose. But that ends now. I will give you 8 mental disciplines that separate the 1% from the 99%. 8 laws of thought that you must install into your very mind if you intend to ascend. Each is a blade. Each is a hammer. Each is a key. You will not memorize them. You will obey them. And if you obey them, your world will be altered forever. You are not here to try harder. You are here to think different. You are here to install rhythm, law, and decision into your soul. You are here to walk away from exhaustion and into clarity. You are here to stop begging life for results and start commanding them. You are here to think like the top 1%. Part 1. The 1% begin with a written law. The 99% wait. They wait for opportunity. They wait for someone to notice them. They wait for better timing. They wait for inspiration, for permission, for signs. They live in limbo, moving in circles because they have never drawn a straight line. They are tired, not from climbing, but from circling a mountain they never dare to name. The top 1% do not wait. They declare. They do not move in reaction. They act in direction. They do not wait for orders. They give themselves a command. And that command is written. That command is law. That command is called a definite chief aim. It is not a wish. It is not a want. It is not a vague desire. It is the internal constitution of a man who has decided who he will be. Every man I have ever studied who became rich, powerful, respected, everyone, began his climb with a decision written in ink. I do not speak of goals. I speak of written law. I speak of internal fire externalized through words so clear that the subconscious could see them. For the subconscious does not respond to noise. It responds to clarity, repetition, and belief. Carnegie commanded me to write my life's purpose on paper. Not to think about it, not to whisper it, but to write it and read aloud twice per day, once in the morning, once before bed. Why? Because he understood that until the law is written, it is not law. Until the mind can read it, it will not obey. Until the soul can hear it, it will not burn. If you have no written aim, your labor is scattered. Your energy is divided. You are vulnerable to every distraction because you have no sword. You are seduced by every opportunity because you have no compass. You chase shadows and miss the summit. You fight every fire but build nothing permanent. You call this work. I call it drift. I tell you now, if you are working without a definite chief aim, you are not on the path to riches. You may survive, but you will not ascend because the riches of life obey command, not confusion. And command begins with clarity of purpose. What do you want not vaguely, not emotionally, not someday? What is the outcome you are building as law? Say this aloud. I do not work harder. I think sharper. I act in law. Say it again. Let it root. This is not empty repetition. This is instruction to the subconscious. This is how the new identity is installed. You are not trying to achieve a goal. You're installing a law that demands results. The written aim must be more than words. It must be spiritual conviction. It must rattle your spine when you read it. It must summon the image of the man you have decided to become. It must contain fire, clarity, and identity. If it does not do these things, it is not your chief aim. It is just noise, and noise has no power. When I first wrote mine, I did not feel ready. I did not feel qualified. But that was not the point. Writing it was the act that changed me. It was the first time I gave the subconscious a command, not a complaint. And from that moment, my path began to change, not because the world shifted, but because I finally had direction. You must stop waiting to feel confident. You must stop waiting to be certain. You must write the aim now, not after you read another book, not after you attend another seminar, not after you fail again. Now, the mind obeys only what is declared, and until you declare your aim in writing, you remain a wanderer. The top 1% do not guess. They write. They do not wonder. They decide. They do not say, I'll figure out. They say, this is the law I obey. They build businesses, empires, systems, and legacies from one written command. They wake with it. They sleep with it. They repeat it until it becomes real. There is no greater secret to success than this. Clarity repeated becomes command. Command repeated becomes identity. Identity repeated becomes results. And results repeated become legacy. But it all begins with one written statement of purpose. This is not optional. This is law. Do not ask if it will work. That is the language of the 99%. Do not wonder if it is the right goal. That is drift. Decide, write, repeat. Let the law form you through rhythm, not through constant rethinking. The man who rewrites his aim every week has no aim. He has insecurity. You will not be that man. Take the paper. Write the law. Read it aloud every morning before you speak to the world. Read it every evening before you sleep. Speak it with emotion. Speak it with certainty, even if it shakes. Let the subconscious receive it. Let it install. Let it rewire the man you were into the man you have decided to become. Say again, I do not work harder. I think sharper. I act in law. That is your new rhythm. That is your creed. That is the gateway to the top 1%. It begins not with labor, but with law, not with effort, but with instruction, not with hustle, but with written thought. You are not on the path if your aim is not written. You are not becoming if your purpose is not spoken aloud. You are not rising if your life is governed by tasks and not by direction. Write the law. Repeat the law. Obey the law. This is how kings are made. Part 2. The 1% think in outcomes, not in effort. The average man worships effort. He idolizes exhaustion. He confuses activity with progress and pain with power. He counts his hours, brags of his labor, and wears fatigue as if it were gold. But I tell you, fatigue is no proof of advancement. Pain is not always profit. And hours mean nothing to the man who moves without law. The 99% ask themselves daily, did I work hard enough? But the 1% ask, what did I produce? The man of outcome measures his day by result. The man of labor measures it by effort. One builds kingdoms. The other builds resentment. And when night falls, only one has moved closer command. I must say this clearly. If your life is organized around how much you've done rather than what has been achieved, you are still thinking like the 99%. You are still in bondage to appearance. You are still seeking approval through exhaustion. That is not success. That is servitude. Henry Ford was not interested in the number of hours his workers labored. He was interested in one thing: output, what was built, what was finished, what was produced. He knew that a man can work 10 hours and move nothing forward, while another can act in one decisive hour and transform his world. This is a thinking of the 1%. You must now stop asking if you're working hard. Start asking if you are producing value, direction, and result. You must train your mind to think in terms of completion, not duration, in terms of precision, not energy, in terms of destination, not movement. Say this now: I am not a laborer. I am a commander of results. Repeat it until your mind believes it, until your actions obey it, until your measurement of each day changes. Because if you do not change what you measure, you will never change what you become. The drifting man begins the day with tasks but no vision. He checks off boxes. He fills a calendar. He completes errands. And yet, he ends the day no closer to his aim. That is not discipline. That is delusion. The disciplined man acts only on what moves him forward and discards all else without apology. You must begin each morning with one question: what result must be created today that brings my aim closer to reality? Not how many hours to work, not how many emails to answer, not how tired you should be. One result. That is your command. That is how the 1% think. Edison did not pace his lab to appear busy. He worked like a man possessed, but not by effort, by vision. Every wire he touched, every diagram he drew, every experiment he ordered was toward one result: illumination, the electric light, a future command made real through accurate, organized action. He did not care what time it was. He did not seek applause. He was not working hard to prove himself. He was creating destiny through outcome-driven effort. That is a world apart from the man who toils to be seen or to relieve guilt. One is a king, the other is a slave. And I say this now to wake you from false labor. If what you did today did not build your aim, it was drift disguised as discipline. And that lie must be broken if you wish to ascend. You cannot climb while dragging the illusion of progress. Measure your days by completion. Write each morning the one outcome you will bring into existence. At night, look at it. Did it come to pass? If yes, obey again. If no, ask why. Not to feel guilt, but to refine accuracy. The mind of the 1% is not emotional. It is organized, strategic, and cold toward waste. Most men are romantic with their work. They want to feel noble. They want to suffer and be seen. The 1% are ruthless with their time. They are loyal to their vision, not their feelings. They are servants of result, and that is why they are followed. Say again, I am not a laborer. I am a commander of results. The builder is not obsessed with pace. He is obsessed with outcome. And the builder who works from law produces more in silence than 10 men shouting about their struggle. You must stop managing time. Start managing results. Write the outcome. Give the order. Execute the law. Repeat daily. That is the pattern. That is the rhythm. That is the beat of the top 1%. If you feel tired, ask, what did I finish? If you feel overwhelmed, ask, what one result matters? If you feel confused, ask, what is the next clear outcome aligned with my aim? These questions will free you from the chain of effort. You are not here to impress with motion. You are here to build. You are not here to exhaust yourself. You are here to organize your fire. You are not here to hustle blindly. You are here to lead with precision. That is what separates the 1% from the herd. Track results, not hours. Track completion, not busyness. Track alignment with aim, not quantity of tasks. Track outcomes that confirm direction. That is how you know if your effort was worthy. That is how you know if you have advanced. And remember, true work is not what tires the body. True work is what moves the soul closer to law fulfilled. If you feel drained but not directed, you are still drifting. If you feel proud of your pain but see no fruit, you are still thinking like the 99%. But you are not that man. You are changing. You are stepping into command. You are replacing hustle with law. You are replacing panic with outcome. You are done begging time to favor you. You now command it through decision. One final time. I am not a laborer. I am a commander of results. Let this be the voice in your mind. Each time you act, each time you plan, each time you resist false busyness and choose one clear result, you are now walking the rhythm of the 1%. Part 3. The 1% use imagination to command the future. The average man is a prisoner of memory. He wakes up with yesterday's fears, yesterday's failures, yesterday's thoughts. He looks backward for proof, and seeing none. System. I concludes that his future must resemble his past. He is shackled, not by reality, but by repetition, not by fate, but by lack of imagination. That man remains where he is. But the top 1% live differently. They live by imagination. They wake not with regret, but with vision. They are pulled forward by an inner picture so vivid, so clear, so commanding that the present world bends to match it. They are not servants of circumstance. They are architects of it. They do not react. They create. This is a law. All things are created twice. First in thought, then in form. The man who builds nothing in mind builds nothing in the world. Every palace begins in the unseen. Every fortune is conceived before it is constructed. And every man of power I have known has lived more in the world of vision than in the world of fact. Edison uses imagination like a blueprint. He would sit in silence, enter his inner world, and walk through his future invention as if it already existed. He saw the light before it was lit. He saw the world illuminated before a single filament had succeeded. This was not hope. It was law in motion. You may ask, but how can I see what does not yet exist? I say to you, that is the very gift of man. The animal reacts. The machine repeats. But man can picture what is not, speak it as if it is, and by obedience to law, bring it into form. That is not fantasy. That is dominion. The 99% use imagination for fear. They imagine what could go wrong. They rehearse failure. They mentally dwell in shame, what-ifs, and doubts. And so, the subconscious obeys and begins shaping a life that reflects their inner rehearsals. They call this realism, but I call it misuse of divine faculty. The top 1% reverse the current. They command their thoughts. They use imagination, not for escape, but for instruction. They visualize the aim fulfilled. They walk through the actions. They feel the emotion of certainty. They speak the result aloud until it no longer feels foreign. They make the unseen familiar. Say this now. I do not dream idly. I create with authority. Again, let it become a law that governs your inner world. You are not daydreaming. You are blueprinting. You are no longer picturing possibilities. You are constructing inevitabilities. And I say this with a full weight of experience. When a man visualizes with clarity and repetition, something strange occurs. His body begins to move in accordance. His speech begins to align. His eyes begin to recognize opportunities. His doubts begin to dissolve, not through effort, but through alignment. You must now dedicate time each day to the sacred practice, not when convenient, not when inspired daily. At dawn or before bed, sit in silence. See the future you have written in your chief aim. See it so clearly that your mind begins to obey it, even while you sleep. Do not wait for permission to see a future greater than your present. Command it. Close your eyes. Picture the man who owns your aim. See how he walks, how he moves, what he has built, how he has spoken, how he carries silence with him. See it until you believe it. And once you believe it, you will obey it. And this is what I learned from the masters. The man who cannot see it will never command it. The man who mocks vision has already submitted to mediocrity. The man who refuses to rehearse greatness will stumble in execution. But the man who lives his aim before it arrives shall rise without delay. Imagination is not a child's tool. It is the highest weapon of the builder. It is the place where the laws of cause are written, the blueprint from which substance is carved, and the voice of infinite intelligence whispers most clearly in the mind that pictures its purpose. Say it again. I do not dream idly. I create with authority. You must now begin to speak your future aloud and picture it daily, not as hope, but as command, not as longing, but as installation. The subconscious cannot resist repetition, and when vision becomes familiar, your body will obey it. Carnegie once said that he could smell a man's future by how he spoke of it. The man who says, I hope, is weak. The man who says, I will, is dangerous. But the man who says it already is, commands heaven and earth to obey. That is the power of mental ownership. You must not limit your imagination to things you've already seen. You must see beyond your history, beyond your income, beyond your surroundings. You must imagine results so clear that fear has no place to sit, because when the vision is strong, the opposition weakens. Do not fear being called unrealistic. All progress was once mocked. For imagine a car when people still rode horses. Rockefeller envisioned a national oil empire when others barely lit their homes. Edison dreamed of cities filled with light, while the world called it madness. Imagination is not delusion. It is command. You are not here to remember. You are here to design. You are not here to cope. You are here to construct. You are not here to replay failures. You are here to rehearse dominion. That is the path of the 1%. You will know you are changing when your inner world becomes more powerful than your outer world. When you no longer react to what is seen, but walk in what is imagined. That is when your words carry fire. That is when people feel something different in your presence, not because you work harder, but because you saw more. You are now a builder of the unseen. Let that be your rhythm. Let that be your command. Speak your future aloud. Picture it daily. Rehearse it without pause. You are not drifting. You are instructing the invisible, and the invisible will shape the visible in your image. Say it one final time. I do not dream idly. I create with authority. The dreamer wanders. The builder obeys. You are now the builder. Part 4. The 1% think in silence, not in noise. The average man cannot bear silence. He avoids it as if it were pain. He fills his hours with voices, his minutes with distraction, his mornings with chatter. He surrounds himself with noise, not because it helps him think, but because it prevents him from hearing what must be heard. In silence, the truth speaks. In silence, weakness is exposed. But the top 1%, they run to silence. They crave it. They build it into their day with reverence. They retreat into it, not to escape the world, but to command it, because they understand that silence is not emptiness. Silence is sanctuary. It is a chamber where law is written and vision becomes fire. They do not fear quiet. They use it. The man of purpose walks alone, not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. He must think uninterrupted. He must make decisions without opinion. He must sit with his doubts, not to indulge them, but to burn them. The builder must guard his mind the way a soldier guards his fort. Every intrusion costs power. Rockefeller took long walks without company. He would walk for hours in silence, turning over decisions in his mind like stones in his hand. He did not make hasty moves. He did not ask everyone what they thought. He did not scroll through the noise of the world. He walked, thought, and decided. That is the way of kings. Carnegie planned annual retreats, days spent in total withdrawal from society. No meetings, no correspondence, just reflection, thought, and sharpening of vision. Why? Because a man who thinks clearly once a year outpaces the man who reacts daily for a lifetime. Silence amplifies thought, and thought, when ordered, moves the world. The 99% think aloud. They blurt out their plans, their fears, their questions. They speak before they understand. They ask before they sit in stillness. And because of this, their minds are never deep, their thoughts never rich, their ideas never rooted. They confuse stimulation for clarity. They are lit by sparks, not fire. You must now train yourself to enter silence daily. It is not a luxury. It is law. You must carve space where no voice enters of your own, no noise, no music, no questions, no movement, just your breath, your mind, and the law you are building within it. That is where power is born. Say this: I protect my mind from noise. My thoughts create wealth. Again, until you feel the quiet forming inside you. You are no longer a man who needs sound. You are now a man who can command clarity from a void. You are not filled by the world. You are filled by the word you speak in silence. If you find yourself anxious when alone, that is proof you have not yet mastered solitude. If you need to be told what to think, you are not yet sovereign. If you panic without input, you have not yet developed the capacity for internal guidance. And that is the mark of the 99%. They drift not for lack of time, but for lack of silence. Silence is not absence. It is presence. It is where infinite intelligence speaks, not in thunder, but in stillness, not in reaction, but in rhythm. And the man who sits in it daily will begin to feel himself separating from the masses, not in pride, but in clarity. You must now block time for silence at least once per day. You must sit, walk, or stand in stillness. You must bring with you your written aim. You must reflect on your outcomes. You must ask, what is my next command? What is the next instruction I must obey? What decision have I delayed? And you must listen for the answer, not from outside, but from within. You will feel the urge to run, to check the world, to fill the space. Resist it. This is your discipline. This is your altar. You are not wasting time. You are sharpening thought. You are not escaping life. You are preparing to master it. In silence, your true fears will rise. Your neglected dreams will whisper. Your misaligned actions will be revealed. That is why most avoid it. But the man of the 1% faces all of it, because once seen, it can be changed. And once changed, it cannot be undone. Say it again. I protect my mind from noise. My thoughts create wealth. Let it be your oath, your creed, your discipline. This is not optional. This is not soft. This is the forge. No man who changed the world did it without solitude, and no man who fears solitude will ever change himself. You are now walking in law, and law requires space to echo. You are shaping thought, and thought requires depth. You are commanding future, and future requires clarity. You are not just working, you are building. And builders need stillness to hear the structure. Silence will reveal the next step. It will refine the current aim. It will expose the false moves. And it will strengthen the parts of you that no audience can see. Do not just practice silence. Live in rhythm with it. You are no longer a man pulled by noise. You are no longer a voice among voices. You are now the one who speaks from depth, who acts from knowing, who decides, not from pressure, but from power. Say it one last time. I protect my mind from noise. My thoughts create wealth. And so they will, because you now think in silence as the masters did. You are not reacting. You are creating. You are not escaping. You are building. Part 5. The 1% thing from identity, not emotion. The average man lives by emotion. He waits to feel ready before he moves. He waits to feel confident before he speaks. He obeys the wind of feeling and wonders why his house collapses. He says, I'll act when I feel strong. But strength does not visit such men. Strength only visits the man who acts first and feels second. The man who thinks from identity. The top 1% do not wait. They do not consult their mood to determine their direction. They consult their identity. They act not as they feel, but as they have decided to be. Their minds are governed by law, not impulse. They speak not from reaction, but from rhythm. Their thoughts are not colored by emotion, but anchored by who they are. Abraham Lincoln was hated by half his country, doubted by many of his closest men, and tormented by conflict. But he acted not from feeling. He acted from identity. He had decided in silence who he was. And when the storm came, he did not search for courage. He walked in it because it was already installed. Identity is a law you write for yourself. Emotion is a reaction written by the world. Most men are ruled by emotions they do not question. They call themselves tired, unmotivated, uncertain. But those are not truths. Those are states, and states change. Identity, when declared and obeyed, does not. Say this now. I am not a man of feelings. I am a man of law. Again, until the voice within begins to shift, until you stop asking how you feel and start declaring who you are. That is the mark of the 1%. They rise before they feel ready. They speak before fear decides. They act from pattern, not persuasion. When you wake in the morning, the body may resist, the mind may wander, the soul may feel unsure, but none of this matters. You rise because that is what you do. You act because you are a man who acts. You do not ask emotion to permit your mission. You act because identity has been declared. That is power. The 99% act when they feel like it. The 1% act until they feel it. And by acting, they shape the very state others wait for. Do not wait for clarity. Speak it. Do not wait for courage. Walk as if you have it. Do not wait to be ready. Decide you are, and let your movement rewrite your mood. Repetition creates identity, and identity commands action. This is the cycle of transformation, but you must install it. You must choose your words. You must recite them. You must repeat the law of who you are until it becomes truer than any moment of weakness. That is the rhythm of greatness. Every morning, speak the identity you are becoming, not softly, not as a question, but as command. Say, I am a builder. I act in law. I command results. I am unshaken. I rise with direction. I move with fire. And let your body obey before your feelings catch up, for they always will. Emotion is useful, but only when it obeys. When it leads, it distorts. When it reacts, it weakens. You cannot build a life by feeling your way through it. You must decide. You must carve your image into the world through thought and repetition. That is how the top 1% do it. They do not guess. They declare. Do not say, I feel like a failure. Say, I am a man of persistence. Do not say, I am afraid. Say, I act with decision. Do not say, I lack discipline. Say, I am a man of pattern and law. Words repeated become laws written on the walls of the subconscious, and those laws shape your life. The 1% know that emotion comes and goes, but identity remains. And the stronger the identity, the less space for fear. The more clear the declaration, the less time wasted in doubt. That is why they speak differently, move differently, decide differently. They have trained their minds to obey who they are, not how they feel. You may be tired, but the builder builds. You may be nervous, but the man of purpose speaks. You may feel weak, but the one who obeys law walks with certainty. This is not pretending. This is command. This is mental kingship. This is spiritual decision. Say again, I am not a man of feelings. I am a man of law. Do not say it once. Say it until it is true. Say it until your old identity falls away like dead skin. Say it until you no longer recognize the man who once waited to feel ready. That man is gone, burned in the fire of discipline, replaced by a man of rhythm. And this rhythm is not accident. It is not mystery. It is repetition. Daily repetition of truth spoken, aim declared, pattern obeyed. That is the forge of identity. And from it, all action flows. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer asking permission from your mood. You are no longer responding to weakness. You have declared who you are. And now, everything you do must obey that law. Not some days, every day. One last time, I am not a man of feelings. I am a man of law. This is your weapon. This is your compass. This is your answer to doubt, fear, laziness, fatigue, uncertainty. When they speak, you speak louder. You remind them that you have already decided who you are, and that decision is final. Part 6. The 1% think in systems, not in effort. The average man wakes each day as if it were new territory. He decides again what time to rise, what task to begin, whether or not to act. His energy is wasted not in effort, but in indecision. He repeats yesterday's chaos and calls it work. He is busy, but he is not structured. He moves, but he does not advance. He reacts, but he does not rule. The top 1% do not begin their day with questions. They begin with execution because their decisions have already been made. Their law is already written. Their system is already installed. They do not ask, "What should I do today?" They do what they always do. That is how a system works. That is how cosmic habit force obeys its master. Henry Ford did not build his empire by trying harder each day. He built it by organizing thought into process, by turning scattered tasks into machines, by eliminating uncertainty through system. Every bolt, every turn, every man on the line had a pattern, a rhythm, a defined role. It was not effort that built Ford's empire. It was system. Effort without system is exhaustion. System without effort is theory. But system enforced by law becomes multiplication. And this is what the 1% understand. The man with a system needs no motivation because his discipline is already embedded. His actions are not negotiable. His future is not left to chance. Say this: I obey my system. My system builds success without emotion. Say it again. You are no longer a man of reaction. You are becoming a man of law. And law demands repetition. You must install patterns that are immune to mood. That is the structure of ascendancy. Most men ask, how do I stay disciplined? The 1% never ask that because discipline is not something they search for. It is something they design. They create morning routines, evening reviews, daily aims, fixed wake times, scheduled thinking hours. They remove decisions until all that remains is action. Your system is your scaffold. It holds the future in place. Without it, you drift. With it, you rise. Without it, you negotiate. With it, you execute. Your feelings may waver, but your system does not. That is why it must be written. That is why it must be obeyed. That is why the 1% rise while the 99% wander. Build your 90-day system. This is your test. Write the waking hour. Write your morning pattern. Water, written aim, spoken identity, movement, action. Write your evening ritual. Review of results, planning of tomorrow, affirmation of your law. Write your key outcomes. Make them daily. Make them non-negotiable. This is not complicated. This is not new. This is structure, and structure makes men. Chaos breaks them. The builder wakes and moves. The drifter wakes and thinks. The builder has already decided. The drifter is still searching for motivation. Do not waste another hour wondering what to do. Write your law. Write your rhythm. Obey it. Let it form you. You will not feel free, but you will become powerful. You will not feel spontaneous, but you will become certain. Freedom comes not from escape, but from order. And the highest order is self-governed system. Say it again: I obey my system. My system builds success without emotion. This is your rhythm now. No more gambling with your mornings. No more chaos at night. No more inconsistent thought. No more scattered plans. You are not here to try harder. You are here to build something permanent. And permanence is birthed from system. Cosmic habit force does not respond to emotion. It responds to repetition. The subconscious mind does not obey talk. It obeys pattern. Thought repeated becomes routine. Routine repeated becomes character. Character repeated becomes destiny. This is not a theory. This is a spiritual law. And now it is your law. The reason you falter is not lack of discipline. It is lack of system. You ask too often. You choose too frequently. Your brain is exhausted by options. Cut the options. Replace them with law. That is how the builder rises. That is how the 1% never miss. They do not depend on willpower. They depend on structure. They do not ask if today will be different. They have decided it will be obedient. Obedient to system, obedient to identity, obedient to aim. Your schedule is not a cage. It is a throne. It does not imprison you. It enthrones your clarity. The man without rhythm is vulnerable, but the man who rises, speaks, writes, moves, and acts without fail is invincible because he no longer waits for life to push him. He has become the force. Say it once more, I obey my system. My system builds success without emotion. Say it when you do not feel like acting. Say it when you wish to delay. Say it when your past self whispers weakness. And then move. Move in law. Move in rhythm. Move in decision. You are not building discipline. You are building system. You are not chasing motivation. You are installing rhythm. You are not hoping for a better future. You are commanding it through organized thought. Your old life was built by accident. Your new life will be built by pattern. Your old days were ruled by how you felt. Your new days are ruled by what you've written. That is the path. That is the rhythm. That is how kings think. Part 7. The 1% think through accurate thought, not hope. The average man confuses fantasy for faith and hope for law. He says, I believe it will work. But when asked why, he cannot answer. He moves on feelings, not facts. He speaks in slogans, not substance. He surrounds himself with noise that flatters, but fears truth that demands change. He repeats what others say, but seldom questions whether it is rooted in law or illusion. The top 1% do not hope blindly. They think precisely. They do not chase feeling. They seek fact. They separate truth from opinion, principle from preference, evidence from emotion. They know that wealth does not obey wishful thinking. It obeys accurate thought. And accurate thought is the rarest discipline in the world. Say this aloud. I do not hope, I think with precision. Again, feel the difference in tone, in posture, in power. The man who hopes waits. The man who thinks acts. The man who hopes reacts. The man who thinks creates. Hope may comfort you, but it will never build your fortune. That is the difference between the crowd and the crown. Andrew Carnegie surrounded himself, not with yes men, but with accurate thinkers. He did not reward flattery. He demanded clarity. He asked, what are the facts? And would sit in silence until he had them. If the evidence changed, he changed course, not out of weakness, but because he obeyed truth, not ego. This is where the 99% fall. They form an opinion, then seek confirmation. They decide, then filter information to protect their pride. But the top 1% seek only what is. They discard what cannot be proven. They burn assumptions. They kill emotion that clouds judgment. That is why they lead. You must now begin practicing accurate thinking. It is not complicated, but it is rare. Each day ask, is this fact or opinion? Do I know this or assume it? Is this my thought or one I've inherited from the drifting masses? And when you do not know, admit it. Only the proud defend ignorance. Write 2 columns, one for what you know, one for what you are assuming. Then eliminate all assumptions. Replace them with research, reflection, or silence. You do not need more thoughts. You need clearer ones. And clarity begins with cutting, not adding. Emotion is the enemy of accuracy. The man who reacts in anger or fear loses precision. The mind clouded by ego cannot see clearly. The man who needs to be right will remain wrong. But the man who seeks what is right, no matter the cost, will rise quickly. Say again, I do not hope, I think with precision. This is your new law. From now on, Your plans are based on what can be proven. Your beliefs are tested by logic and experience. Your thoughts are questioned before they are obeyed. You are no longer led by hope. You are led by truth. Most men fall, not because they lack talent, but because they built their life on assumption. They trusted words from the wrong mouths. They followed emotions that had no anchor. They made decisions that felt good, not because they were good. And when the storm came, they fell. You will not fall because you now obey the law of accurate thought. You will surround yourself with truth, even if it wounds. You will seek out correction, even if it humbles. You will demand clarity, even when it costs comfort, because wealth, greatness, and legacy are only given to those who can be trusted with truth. Think and grow rich does not say hope and grow rich. It does not say feel good and grow rich. It says think. That means discipline. That means analysis. That means decision rooted in reality, not reaction. This is how the 1% build empires while the masses build excuses. When you face a decision, pause. Ask, what do I know? What am I assuming? What would an accurate thinker do in my place? Then act with clarity, without hesitation. That is how you train the mind to lead instead of follow. That is how you become sovereign. Let your speech change. Do not say, I think this is true. Say, I confirm this is true. Do not say, it feels right. Say, it aligns with my law. Do not say, this should work. Say, this will work because it has been tested. That is the voice of the 1%. That is the language of command. Your mind is no longer a playground for emotion. It is a tool of construction. And every thought you allow into it must serve your aim or be discarded. There is no neutral thinking. All thought builds or destroys. You must now become the architect of your inner temple. Say it again. I do not hope, I think with precision. Let this law be louder than fear, louder than emotion, louder than confusion. You are not walking by sight. You are walking by accurate instruction. And that instruction is born from thought governed by law. You are no longer a man of assumptions. You are no longer impressed by volume or titles. You are now a seeker of truth. You are now governed by the law of clarity. And for that reason, you will not drift. You will not fall. You will not break. Accurate thinking is not glamorous. It is not praised by the masses, but it is honored by results. It is rewarded by the laws of the universe, and it is the root of every enduring empire. You must now become its disciple without pride, without pretense, without delay. Part 8. The 1% think to give orders, not to beg for permission. The average man waits. He waits for signs. He waits for approval. He waits for instruction from others, for the world to nod before he moves. He prays for the door to open, but dares not build the door himself. He speaks softly of his plans, hoping someone will grant him permission to become what he was already called to be. That is not leadership. That is begging. But the top 1% think differently. They think as kings. They do not wait to be chosen. They decide they are chosen. They do not ask the world to allow them. They command themselves into action. They do not need to be told, go. They have already gone. Their mind is no longer a suggestion box. It is a command post. Say this now. I do not beg. I do not ask. I decide and I command. Let that shape your tongue and your spine. For you were not born to ask life to give you something. You were born to declare what you will build and move with decisions so sharp that infinite intelligence must obey. Edison did not beg success to notice him. He demanded the light obey his vision. He gave orders to his mind. He demanded results from his imagination. He instructed his thoughts, his team, his time with discipline and fire. And the world bent to that order, because the world always bends to the man who decides. You must now stop asking, can I or should I, or will it work? And begin saying, I will, I am, I act, I command. You must write your thoughts, not as questions, but as decrees. No more, I hope to focus. Now it is, I focus. No more, I will try to finish. Now it is, I finish. This is not arrogance. It is mental law. The subconscious mind is a servant. It is waiting for your orders. And the reason most men stay the same is because their orders are unclear or weak or not given at all. They think in feelings, in questions, in long wandering circles. But the subconscious does not respond to wandering. It responds to instruction. This is why repetition is so vital. You are not just speaking into the air. You are training the very soil of your being to obey the voice of law. Each time you say, I act, I build, I lead, I complete, your mind receives a hammer blow of identity. And when it receives enough, it begins to obey without resistance. You must begin writing daily orders to yourself. Not ideas, not hopes, orders. At 6 a.m., I rise. At 6:15, I move. At 6:45, I read my law aloud. At 7, I begin the first task. I finish by 9. I do not check distraction until my results are complete. I repeat my aim. I finish the day with reflection. I record my progress. This is not rigidity. This is mental warfare. And in war, men do not hope, they command. You are in war now. War against drift, against delay, against identity theft. And your only weapon is the thought you command and the action you obey. The reason you waited so long is because no one told you that you could speak this way. No one told you that you didn't need applause, permission, validation, or consensus. No one told you that power is not given. It is taken by law, earned through rhythm, sealed through repetition. But I'm telling you now, say it again, I do not beg, I do not ask, I decide and I command. That is the voice of the 1%. That is the language of the builder. That is the tone of the king who walks alone, and yet never doubts, because he gave the only approval that mattered, his own. Every day, you must speak to yourself in orders, directives, declarations. You must train your very muscles to obey your words. And once your body begins to submit, your results will multiply. Not because of more effort, but because of less drift. Most men are weak, not because they are incapable, but because they have never practiced command. They stutter when they speak their dreams. They shrink when challenged. They reverse when opposed, because they never train their inner voice to speak law with fire. You must train that voice daily, every hour if needed. You must become so used to giving yourself instruction that any external noise becomes faint. That is how the 1% live. They are not perfect. They are not always right, but they are decisive. And decision is power. Write down your command phrases. Post them. Repeat them. Let them replace all weak speech. No more, I'm trying. No more, I hope to. No more, maybe. Replace it with, I will. Replace it with, I do. Replace it with, it is done. Let your language shape your world, because the world will always obey the man who speaks, as if it already has. The subconscious does not know the difference between future and now. It obeys the present voice. And when that voice is strong, clear, repetitive, and full of identity, the body aligns, the mind sharpens, and the world shifts. You are now becoming that man. You are not hoping to succeed. You are commanding success. You are not waiting to become. You are becoming now, not through magic, not through secrets, through order, through structure, through voice. Say it one final time. I do not beg, I do not ask, I decide and I command. That is your rhythm now. That is your pulse. That is your shield. And when you speak it daily and act upon it hourly and enforce it even when tired, you will be feared, not because of volume, but because of unshakable identity. Now you have seen it. The way the top 1% think is not a mystery. It is not luck. It is not birth. It is structure. It is obedience. It is clarity of law enforced through repetition, burned into identity, and carried forward with command. The 99% wait to feel ready. The 1% act from law. And now you know which one you must become. You believed hard work alone would make you rich. But hard work is the obligation of every man. What separates the 1% is how they think before they act, how they structure thought before they swing the hammer, how they write the law before they toil. It is not the strength of their arms. It is the authority of their mind. Say this now. I no longer drift. I think with law. I act with identity. I build in silence. I become through thought. That is your oath. That is your compass. That is your beginning. You're no longer a laborer hoping for favor. You are now a thinker commanding results. You do not wait for direction. You give yourself orders and obey without question. Let us review what you must now live. First, you must write your law. Your definite chief aim is not a dream. It is a declaration. It is the first act of creation. Without it, your mind remains ungoverned. With it, your world begins to obey. Second, you must measure outcome, not effort. The drifter counts hours. The builder counts results. Let your day answer one question. What did I produce that moved my aim forward? Third, you must use imagination, not for escape, but for instruction. You must see what will be until it becomes what is. Visualization is not fantasy. It is command, and it must be practiced daily. Fourth, you must protect silence. Do not let the noise of the world interrupt your thought. Solitude is a chamber of law. The master builds alone before the world sees what he has formed. Fifth, you must act from identity, not emotion. The man who waits to feel strong never moves. The man who acts as if he is already strong becomes it. Identity is not discovered. It is declared and repeated. 6. You must install systems. Your future is not built by motivation. It is built by repetition, morning, evening, written aim, daily outcomes, obedience to rhythm over reaction. 7. You must think through accurate thought, not vague hope. Eliminate assumptions. Seek what is true. Make decisions based on clarity, not comfort. Fact over feeling. Discipline over delusion. 8. You must speak to yourself in commands, not requests, not questions, orders. The subconscious is not your friend. It is your servant. It obeys only strength, repetition, and clarity. This is how the top 1% think. This is how they move. This is how they lead. Not louder, not faster, but clearer. They do not chase. They create. They do not drift. They declare. They do not react. They decide. Say again, I no longer drift. I think with law. I act with identity. I build in silence. I become through thought. Let that sentence bury the old version of you. Let it destroy the man who waited. Let it silence the man who begged. Let it build the man who speaks law into his own life and obeys it with fire. You are not one of the 99% anymore. You are no longer lost in motion. You are no longer enslaved to noise. You are no longer confused by failure. You now know the truth. Hard work alone is not the key. Thought, law, decision, rhythm, identity, and command. These are the gates of mastery. And if you obey these laws daily, not just once, not just when you feel like it, but daily, with repetition so relentless it becomes breath, then you will rise. You will build. You will become feared by the average and respected by the great. You will become what you have spoken. Now stand. Speak your law. Write your command. Build your system. Act from identity. And think no longer as a beggar, but as a king. This is not motivation. This is a mandate. This is not a speech. This is a summons. This is not theory. This is a mirror. And the man who now stares into it must obey or be crushed by the weight of who he refused to become. You are called not by me, but by the fire already burning in you. Obey it. Now go